Well, it's that time again, that time which, oddly enough, seems to come about once a month these days, when my nerdiness is negated by my laziness, and I want to make a video where I talk about Star Trek, but I don't want to go through the trouble of scripting it and thinking about it and putting in effort to make it good. So instead of doing a Trek Actually, I do one of these not actually Trek Actually videos, and this time around, it's even worse than usual because I haven't even picked the topic for this one. I'm just going to respond to some of your comments that you've left on previous Trek Actually videos. It's a miracle I even bothered to set up the camera. Anyway, this first one is a comment on my most recent Trek Actually video, the one about how the Wrath of Khan was all Kirk's fault. It's from Ed So, who says, "Wait a second here, you obviously did not watch the Wrath of Khan. The Federation did visit the solar system within the year to check on Khan. Just a couple of months after Kirk left, Ceti Alpha 6 was destroyed, causing Ceti Alpha 5, the planet Khan was on, to essentially move into Ceti Alpha 6's orbit. This made the Federation think that Ceti Alpha 5 was destroyed, obviously killing Khan and his crew. This is Ceti Alpha 5! The Federation got the planets mixed up after 6 exploded. Remember from Space Seed? It was an uncharted solar system. I know it's hard to actually listen to dialogue and put 2 and 2 together, but come on, man." Here's the thing. The bit about the planet exploding 6 months after Khan and his crew were left on Ceti Alpha 5, totally in the movie. But all the rest of the stuff that you said in your comment, totally not in the movie. It's never indicated that the Federation visited the solar system within the year to check on Khan. It's never indicated that Starfleet concluded that when Ceti Alpha 6 exploded, it was actually Ceti Alpha 5, and Ceti Alpha 5 had moved into Ceti Alpha 6's orbit, and they all just assumed that Khan had been killed in the explosion of the planet, and that's why they never visited to check up on him after that. You filled all of that in yourself. None of that is in the movie. So before I allow myself to be chastised as apparently having never watched the movie, I'm not going to take that from someone who is adding shit that wasn't in the movie and then telling me that it was in the movie. See, you can't do that. It doesn't work because I've seen the movie a whole bunch of times. I know what's in the movie. So, no, I'm afraid I'm not going to accept that from you. I apologize for being firm on this, but you don't get to tell me what was in the movie as though I haven't seen it when I've seen it. Having said that, it is a rational explanation. You know, you could assume, for the sake of just smoothing over some plot inconsistencies, or some maybe problems in the behavior of Kirk or the behavior of Starfleet post-Space Seed, you could assume that, oh, well, maybe they never went back to check on them because Ceti Alpha 6 exploded and shifted the orbit of Ceti Alpha 5, and they must have just thought that Khan and his people were on the planet that exploded. You know, that's actually a pretty good explanation, but that's you doing that to smooth over a plot hole that's bothering you. That's not in the movie. And I don't know. I think that's kind of an important distinction. This next one is also from the Captain Kirk Wrath of Khan video. It's from Norman Dixon. The white rod that Kirk pulls out to beat Khan senseless is a belaying pin and a callback to sailing ships of old. That would make the console a belaying pin rack, which has a degree of subtlety in storytelling not often seen, but is evident in many Star Trek TOS episodes. Can I just tell you, Norman, this is one of the coolest little tidbits I've ever heard in a comment on one of my videos. A lot of my viewers who know more about a particular thing than I do are kind enough to jump in with a comment and explain something that I didn't get, or add a little bit of context or nuance to something in one of my videos. And this is, of the Star Trek videos, certainly my favorite little bit of trivia. I did not know that. I did not know that those little, what I call switches that Kirk pulls out one of them to club Khan with and win the fight at the end of Space Seed, that those were belaying pins. But after you left this comment, I looked it up, and yeah, I mean, not that I didn't believe you, but just to verify, and you're totally right. I think that's exactly what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be belaying pins, and that is such a cool little design touch to put in the Enterprise's engine room. Belaying pins are used to rig sails. I have no idea what function they're supposed to serve in a starship, but it's such a cool little design touch and a nod to sort of classic sailing ship design. And to not only have them there in the background in case somebody notices, but to have Kirk actually pull one out and use it as a crucial part of the fight choreography and to allow him to defeat the superpowered Khan in the fist fight. It's so, so cool. I appreciate that little bit of that episode so much more now. So thank you so much for sharing that. That is awesome. I really, really, really am glad that you left that comment and added that and explained that to me. That's so cool. Here's another one from the Kirk Wrath of Khan video. It's from Nastro PC. And when the Reliant first attacks, Kirk ignores Lieutenant Rebecca from Cheers, and his cavalier attitude toward Khansequences has him disobey General Order 12, not General Order 347B, subsection 2, 12. Something important enough to be only 11 steps down from the Prime Directive. Probably what was covered in your first week at the Academy. Scotty ought to carry his dead nephew up to the bridge and tell Kirk he as good as killed the young ensign himself. This is an excellent observation and something that I wish I had said in my video because it serves the main point of that video, which is that it's not so much important how the Wrath of Khan is literally Kirk's fault, but how that serves the story and how the movie becomes about that and how that allows Kirk's character to change and grow and sort of propels his character arc in the movie, in addition to propelling the plot. Yes, Kirk's cavalier attitude toward Khansequences, Kirk's sort of blithe, casual way of disregarding regulations or doing things his way, regardless of how you're supposed to do them, is there, even if you haven't seen the Space Seed episode that Wrath of Khan is a sequel to. And in my video, I spend a lot of time trying to draw that line connecting Space Seed to Wrath of Khan and showing how how Kirk's attitude in Space Seed and his attitude throughout the original series of sort of just making sweeping changes to planetary societies or coming up with sort of unilateral solutions to problems and then flying off never to return again eventually comes back to bite him in the ass in Wrath of Khan. And that's what makes that movie so great, because it finally pays off all of this stuff from Kirk in the original series that we didn't even realize was a setup until Wrath of Khan. So I focused a lot on that, but even within Wrath of Khan itself, you see Kirk exhibiting that behavior. And then it comes back to bite him on the ass when Khan shows up. And because the Enterprise's shields have not been raised, as is the standard protocol according to regulations, that's what allows Khan to attack the Enterprise that first time and damage the ship so severely. And Kirk himself realizes that at the end of the battle. When someone says, you did it, sir, and Kirk is like, I did nothing. It's a great scene, and it establishes that pattern of behavior of Kirk in the movie, which is a very smart thing and very good storytelling, and it gives that character arc of Kirk meaning within the movie. Not just within the movie and also Space Seed, but just within Wrath of Khan itself, which is very important. Movies, I feel like, should mostly be closed systems as much as possible. And Wrath of Khan functions that way, on that level, and can be read that way and still make sense and be a really great movie and a great character arc for Kirk because of stuff like that. And I'm glad you brought it up in the comment. And again, I wish that I had mentioned that in the video. I should have. Another one from the Wrath of Khan video from Dave Harris. Why did Scotty carry his badly injured nephew to the bridge? Wouldn't sick bay be a more logical choice? Well, sure, obviously, and the real reason that Scotty takes the turbo lift to the bridge carrying his mortally wounded nephew is so we can have that super dramatic moment at the end of that bridge scene where Scotty is there holding the symbol, the embodiment of the damage that Khan has just done. But my own personal sort of in-universe explanation for why Scotty takes the lift all the way to the bridge instead of going to sickbay with his grievously injured nephew is that the dude was just under a lot of stress. His mind was probably racing a mile a minute. He was worried. He was concerned for his nephew. He was upset and grieving. And plus he's carrying this body in both hands and he just hits the wrong button. He's only human. He's not a miracle worker. I apologize for that. I apologize to the ghost of James Doohan. Another one on the Kirk Khan video from Alternate View. You do realize that Star Trek is an entertainment, not real? Story? Fiction? What? Actually, this comment is a little sobering because when I was making the Captain Kirk Wrath of Khan video, it never occurred to me that it might be watched by someone who was just discovering the concept of critical analysis for the very first time in their lives. One more from the Captain Kirk Wrath of Khan video, courtesy of Matthew Hendrickson. Did you mean to say Kirk's actions had consequences? Take me now. Before I leave the subject of the Kirk Wrath of Khan video, I did want to mention that there were a few of you who left comments that were very critical of the device that I used in that video, where I was constantly being interrupted during my presentation by my nephew, who was texting me from the next room and saying all kinds of critical things and kind of pedantic, shitty things to me. And a lot of you didn't like that. You didn't think that was a funny device. You didn't think it worked. You felt that it was too disruptive of the flow of the video and that the video would have been better without it. I think that that bit worked okay. I was happy with it, with how it turned out. But if you disagree with me and you think it didn't work and it made the video worse and the video would have been better off without it, I just want to tell you that I think that's a completely valid criticism. And you're entitled to feel that way. I think it's a matter of taste. And if it didn't work for you, as I hoped it would, I'm sorry that it didn't work for you. And I think you're completely entitled to not like it and to think it didn't work and to let me know about it. And I appreciate your comments. There were also a few of you who had a problem with the line where I say to Dustin after he's texted me something, Dustin, if you're about to tweet me some pro-Trump shit, you can get out of my house. And there were a few people who left comments, which I have since deleted, who said, oh, you ruined it when you threw in that cheap shot about Trump. And I don't know why you have to ruin a perfectly good Star Trek video by bringing your personal politics into it. And you know, don't have your axe to grind against Trump intrude on your Star Trek video, yada, yada, yada. So I just want to make this clear one more time for the record. I'll talk about my personal politics in my Star Trek videos whenever it pleases me to do so. And if you don't like that, you can go watch somebody else's videos. And if you are still offended by someone taking a shot at Donald Trump, if you're still a supporter of Donald Trump, or at the very least, you don't like to hear people say things against Trump in a video where maybe you weren't expecting to hear that, you're watching the wrong channel. And if it offends you, or it bothers you, or it puts you off my videos, good. To hell with Donald Trump, and to hell with anybody who still supports him. Go. Watch somebody else's videos. Pay attention to someone else's channel. I don't want you. I don't need you. This is not for you. The next one is from my video, Is Captain Kirk Actually a Womanizer? It's from Prometheus. He may try to be a womanizer, but he certainly is never actually shown getting beyond first base. Your opinions about who Kirk definitely sleeps with, as well as his alleged love child, lack any hard evidence. I suspect Captain Kirk is TV's first incel. That's cute, but you're really reaching on the incel bit. I believe there's quite a bit of hard evidence that Kirk gets beyond first base with several of the women in the show. As I explained in the video, there are a handful of times throughout the original series when we can confidently conclude that he has had sex with these women. There's not a full-on sex scene on the show, of course, but there's the one I mentioned in the video where we cut away and cut back and he's putting on his boots. And there's the one that I forgot about when he is kissing unfortunately, the slave woman, and they sort of lie down together, tasteful fade to black, fade back in, and it's after the act has taken place, and you can sort of confidently conclude that something happened there as well. And then, most obviously, and you want to talk about hard evidence, he gets Miramani pregnant. That's in the episode. I don't know how they were a fairly simple culture. I'm pretty sure they didn't have artificial insemination technology on that planet. So when Kirk impregnates Miramani, I kind of think they did it the old-fashioned way. And how do you do that if you don't get past first base? Another one from the Kirk Womanizer video from Black Nerd 05. In the Kelvinverse, that was Marcus, not Chapel. Yes, this is another little thing that I wish I had done better in the video. Something I should have just clarified with a title or maybe just a quick line in the narration. There is a point in the video where I'm talking about Kelvinverse Kirk in a Star Trek Into Darkness, how he had a relationship with Nurse Chapel, and then Chapel subsequently transferred to the frontier to get away from Kirk, presumably, and Kirk doesn't really remember her, or doesn't seem to remember her. And when I was talking about that bit, I showed a still from that scene in the movie, but in that scene in the movie, Kirk is not actually talking to Christine, he's talking to Carol Marcus, who is saying, I was a friend of Christine Chapel, and then she conveys that information to us through the conversation. So yes, the still that you see, that one right there, is of Carol Marcus in Star Trek Into Darkness, not Christine Chapel. We never actually see the Kelvinverse version of Christine Chapel. So sorry if anybody was confused by that. I wasn't meaning to tell you that that was Christine Chapel on screen. That was Carol Marcus who was talking to Kirk in that scene. Sorry for any confusion. Here's another one from the Kirk Womanizer video. This is one of several comments that were proposing a much better ending to the video than the one I wrote. This is Brian Buell, who says, I liked the ending of this video. The only thing I would have added, Steve should have started the end blurb by putting on a pair of boots. Ooh, suggestive. I like that. I wish I had thought of that. But even more than that, I wish I had thought of this next suggestion. Comment from the same video from Nastro PC once again. Should have cut to a sleeping Steve and out of frame except for her legs, Mrs. Steve putting her boots back on. Now that's the ending I should have gone with. Damn it, I wish. I wish that I could go back in time and rewrite and reshoot that ending, because either one of those is great, but that second one specifically with my wife's feet visible and her putting her boots on to end the video. Oh my God. What a great ending that would have been. It's a shame that I can't slingshot around the sun and travel back in time a few weeks and make that the ending of the video, because that would have been spectacular. Here's one from a slightly older video, a comment left on my What's My Problem with Star Trek Voyager video by Steve Edward Cooper. We have to ration use of the replicators to conserve power, but by all means let's leave the holodeck running 24/7 so a fictional Irish town is always available. The captain can't drink a cup of coffee, but the holographic doctor can screw off and pretend to be a man of the cloth with a flock of NPC holographs. Yeah, this is one of those things that, again, as was the theme of that video, just kind of bothers me about Voyager and speaks to me of a lack of potential or a lack of adventurousness in the writers and the creators of Voyager. Because to me, and again, look, I'm speaking as someone who's not on the creative team. I don't have the pressures of writing a weekly TV series and having to please all the masters that people who write and produce for weekly TV shows have to please, especially when you're under the additional umbrella of a franchise like Star Trek. So there's all these people above you that you have to keep happy, and you can't always just do what you want. But in a perfect world, if you're creating a Star Trek show where the premise is the crew of one Starfleet vessel gets lost on the other side of the galaxy, and the show is about them having to find their way home without the support of the rest of Starfleet, one of the first things I would do if this is a show set in the Next Generation era, as Voyager is take away all the comforts of home as much as I possibly can to drive home how different this show is from the other shows and to really sell that premise. And one of the first things I would do is get rid of the holodeck. Say, sorry, what's the point of doing a show where the crew is alone, far from home, in a strange part of the galaxy, not sure how they're going to make it back or if they're going to make it back? What's the point of that fraught premise if you have a magic room in the ship where they can go home in spirit whenever they want? I just don't get that. And I know they explained it in the show. They said, well, the holodeck runs on a completely separate power grid, so there's no point shutting it off anyway because we won't save any energy. Okay, I guess that's a justification for it as far as the plot goes. Like, well, they explained why they don't bother shutting off the holodeck. Okay, fine. But you're leaving yourself a crutch. You're giving yourself an easy out as a writer. You're not fully committing to and selling that premise, which is something that Voyager did again and again and again. They failed to really commit and sell the premise of the show, which was one of the most intriguing parts of the show, if they had remained true to that premise, which very often they didn't. So as much as I love the holodeck, and the next proper Trek Actually video is going to be all about the holodeck, if I had been in charge of Voyager, I would have taken the holodeck off the table immediately. Here's one from my video, Is Worf Actually a Great Warrior? From Fly House of Truth. Other Klingons made fun of Worf because he slept on a comfortable bed, and Worf killed them, then said, "At least I'm not sleeping in a coffin. I bow to you." That was lovely. I like that. I like that a lot. It's not quite as good as the Khansequences pun, but then again, that's just a matter of taste anyway, isn't it? I like that. Sounds like something that Worf would say, doesn't it? He would just jab a batleth into somebody's chest. "At least I am not sleeping in a coffin." And then he would maybe, I don't know, it depends on what show that he's on. If he's on Next Generation, maybe he'll turn to Riker. If he's on DS9, maybe he'll turn to like O'Brien or Jadzia and give that little Worf smirk, that like, yeah, nicely done. And finally, this is a comment left on my Why Tom Paris is Actually Starfleet's #1 Badass video from P-Force9. Come on, dude, you did not spend enough time on why Warp 10 is unobtainable. The reason that you cannot go Warp 10 is that Warp 10 is infinite speed, which would allow you to be every place in the galaxy at the same time. It is like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy Improbability Drive. I'm pretty sure I put an improbability drive joke in there, didn't I? Or was that another video, not the Tom Paris video? I can't remember. They've all run together in my head. This is my life now. Yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't waste even more time in an already tangent-filled video explaining in detail exactly what Warp 10 is in the pretend universe of Star Trek and why it's impossible to go that speed. That probably would have made the video a whole lot better if I had just veered even further from the main point of the video for a completely extraneous explanation of a weird sort of minor bit of made-up scientific information that had nothing to do with the thesis of the video. I regret that to this day, that I didn't do that. Why didn't I spend time explaining in graphic detail, in exacting, minute Technobabble, what was special about Warp 10 other than the fact that it's the Star Trek equivalent of the speed of light, which is what I said in the video. And the bit about being in every point in the universe at the same time, how could I have gotten out of that Tom Paris video without mentioning that? It's such crucial, relevant information. I feel like I've gone a little bit over the top with the sarcasm. And if that came across as mean-spirited, I apologize. But the reason I didn't mention any of that stuff in the video is because the video has a few tangents in it already. I kind of go a little bit far afield if I can get to a joke that I really want to make. But just to explain some bit of Star Trek technobabble, some bit of made-up Star Trek science that isn't at all relevant to the topic of the video, that's just... I'll waste time in a video, don't get me wrong. But even I have standards. And even I have limits. Anyway, that's it for this video. I will be back next month for the next proper Trek Actually video, which, as I mentioned, is about the holodeck. Is the holodeck actually more trouble than it's worth? Don't forget, if you dig the Star Trek stuff, listen to the Ensign's Log podcast, the Star Trek-themed comedy podcast that I co-star in with the great Jason Harding. And don't forget to go to my Patreon page, which you can go to if you want to support this channel, if you can afford it and you think I'm worth it, with a monthly donation, www.patreon.com/Steve Shives. And while you're there, if you are a patron or after you become a patron, don't forget to vote in the poll to choose the topic of February's Trek Actually video. That's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Happy holidays. See you next time.